Lollapalooza.
Welcome back to the Project Gen X podcast. I am one of your hosts, Alan Smith, along with...
I'm the confused other guy, Big Dave.
This is another one of those episodes I kind of dropped on Dave. He was like, hey, we're going to do this. And he's like, oh, okay. We're going to, since... As we're recording this in July, which this should still be July when this episode goes up, Lollapalooza is celebrating its 30th anniversary.
Woo.
Yeah, the first one went out in July of 1991, which I cannot believe that it's been that long.
Yeah, it didn't feel that long.
It really doesn't, but it does.
But it also feels like it was decades ago. I'm not even going to lie.
And Lollapalooza for us Gen Xers was a big deal. Because it was one of those things where it showcased a lot of diverse bands, especially more of the alternative bands that were bubbling up under the surface and getting ready in just a couple of months to really break through the mainstream. And it was a traveling. Again, if there's anybody that
it was a traveling freak show.
It was a traveling show.
97. That's when I went to fall.
Yeah, that's when. Yeah, we were both at that one. The thing with Lollapalooza is that it was a traveling concert. It was a festival, the traveling festival. Since 2005, though, it's been located in Chicago, and that's it. It's a couple days, and
Perry Farrell. Thank you. I can't talk.
Well, Perry Farrell.
He didn't like traveling around.
Well, no, it wasn't that. We'll get into what happened. Perry Farrell founded the Lollapalooza tour in '91. With the help of some other people, but he was the one that kind of did it because it was one of those things that Jane's Addiction was on the verge of breaking up, and they knew this was their farewell tour. I mean, and so it was something they wanted to go out and tour, and they headlined the show, but they wanted to bring a mix of bands to come out and to showcase. So that first tour started. It was July 18th was when it started in 1991, and on the main stage, and the whole thing with Lollapalooza is they had a main stage and then they had a secondary stage. And then later they actually had a third stage, for the 96 and 97 tours. And we're going to predominantly talk about those 91 to 97 things. I mean, we'll get into some of what happened to them later when they came back. But because this, like I said, very Gen X. The lineup on the first Lollapalooza in 1991 was Jane's Addiction, Susie and the Banshees, Living Colour, 9 Inch Nails, which this was like their first big tour that they were on. Ice-T and Body Count.
Yep.
Butthole Surfers, Rollins Band, Violent Femme, and Fishbone.
Oh, Fishbone.
Yes.
Yeah. And Rollins Band.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that lineup: Jane's Addiction, Susie and the Banshees,
and those are the headliners. That's who played on the main stage.
They only had the main stage at this point.
Yeah.
We will get into side, because there are some very notable bands that played on the second stage as time went on.
Yeah.
Apparently there was a side stage, but only at like one venue, and there was a band named Othello's Revenge that played. I've never heard of them before. So, but in '92 when they went out, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Ministry, Ice Cube, Soundgarden, Jesus and Mary Chain, Pearl Jam, and Lush.
Wow, that's a great
That was
lineup.
the main stage. Now on the side stage, check this out: Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Tool.
Yep.
Porno for Pineapple. The Jim Rose Circus Sideshow was actually on this one. This is where they went out on Lollapalooza.
Right.
With them, okay. Because it was one of those things at Lollapalooza back then. They would take out, like they had Jim Rhodes, they had the Shaolin monks, to come out and do stuff. The Shaolin monks, that kind of stuff. So it was one of those things that they would have like these other things besides just music that was going on. Let's see, who else? Tool, Porno for Pyros, Cypress Hill, House of Pain, the Booyah Tribe, Stone Temple Pilots, and let's see if Luscious Jackson,
Oh, I'd forgotten about Luscious Jackson.
Temple, because Soundgarden and Pearl Jam were both. The Temple of the Dog played on the second stage.
Yeah.
And that's all. I mean, there are a bunch of other bands that played as well, but those were like the big, that like you're like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. You know? The thing with both of these tours is that neither one of them came to Nashville.
No, they did not.
No, I don't know. Matter of fact, Atlanta was as close as they came to here either time. It looks like. No, actually, the first one they didn't even come to Atlanta. So yeah, in '92, but in '93 they did come to Nashville. I remember this. I did not go. I would have liked to. Now that I look back on it, I really like to for one particular. Alice in Chains was a headliner.
Oh, yeah, that would have been nice.
And I never got a chance to see Alice in Chains.
That was the summer I graduated from high school.
Yeah. Alice in Chains, Primus.
Oh, see, I would have gone for Primus.
This is 93. Alice in Chains, Primus, Dinosaur Jr.,
Oh.
Fishbone, Arrested Development, Front 242, Babes in Toyland.
Front 242?
Babes in Toyland, Tool, and Rage Against the Machine. Now
That's
we get to the side
lineup.
stage. You've got The Verve,
Yeah.
Sebadoh,
Sebadoh, yeah.
Luscious Jackson again, Girls Against Boys, Thurston Moore, man, there was a bunch of bands on here. I'm just kind of going through. Those are the only ones that. Oh, Lamb Chop was on it.
What website are you on?
I'm looking at the Wikipedia page.
The Wikipedia page?
So it's one of those things that was a pretty good. Now, like I said, they did come to Nashville. I didn't get to go to that one. Now, when we get to 94, and we have to, before we go any further, let's go back to that first Lollapalooza. I remember seeing it. I was never a huge Jane's Addiction fan.
Really?
Not back then. I like it. There was like, when
Ritual de la,
when Ritual de la, what was it? Ritual de la Habitual came out, and Been Caught Stealing became a huge, kind of a big song for them. I was like, yeah, these guys are okay, but they were just a little too off for me at the time. Later on, I became a Jane's Addiction fan. It was one of those things that, you look at that lineup, and like Living Color and Body Count were like the two bands that I was really like, oh, I'd love to see those guys,
Yeah.
And I didn't really know Nine Inch Nails at the time, or I knew about the Butthole Surfers, but I hadn't really listened to a whole lot of their stuff. The biggest thing I knew with them was, they did that song with Ministry, Who Was in My Bed Last Night.
Yeah,
it was the two bands together. Of course, I knew Rollins' band, and some of that stuff. But it was just kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. This is a neat idea. I thought, you get a bunch of stuff together. You got this touring festival that's going around and everything. And apparently, my dog really likes Jane's Addiction and has something to say about that. So,
I like Jane's Addiction.
I do too. But there are many well documented cases or stories about how by the time when they were on this tour, knowing this is it, that like Perry Farrell and Dave Navarro were not speaking to each other, and when they did,
it was full on fisticuffs.
It was full, like they legitimately in a couple of places. Trent Reznor has talked about seeing them literally like throwing fists backstage, right before they go on, picking up instruments, going out, doing their full set, and as soon as they step back off the stage, just going at it again.
Yeah.
I mean, just straight up.
Absolutely.
And, eventually they did get back together, and that will actually play into Lollapalooza being like rekindled, later on.
Yeah.
And they seem to be all right now. But with that, and I was doing a little reading on this, and apparently Susie and the Banshees were like the big hit of this thing. Like, because it was one of those things that like the people who knew them came out in force to see this. This tour,
Absolutely.
And of course, Nine Inch Nails.
Have you seen Susie and the Banshees?
I never have, honestly.
Dude, I saw them once. It's
really
pretty amazing.
But then Nine Inch Nails, like I said, this was their big outing. Like, of course, Pretty Hate Machine came out in '89, and then Broken came out in '91, and so this was their big. Hey, introducing ourselves to the world. And they also learned a thing about touring there of how technology, with using computers, could be a real problem touring because they said they had multiple times where computers crashed on stage and everything, and it was kind of an issue, and which they eventually, they figured it all out. By the time I remember, because I graduated in '92, so I remember, hearing about Lollapalooza going back out on tour that summer and seeing, it's the Chili Peppers and, Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, and all this stuff, because, they were all like really big at the time. But, also seeing, Ministry, I dig Ministry, and Ice Cube's on this too, that kind of stuff. So it was this whole, you're getting a lot of diversity on this, So but again, like I said, they never came anywhere near here, or they came to Atlanta, and that was it. And at the time, I wasn't really into the traveling for shows. That would come a little bit later.
Yeah.
So by the time '93 rolled around, they're a lot more mainstream.
Yes, they are.
And of course, you look at that. Alice in Chains headlining. This is the Dirt album. On the Dirt tour, and Tool had just, let's see, Undertow was out at this point.
Yeah.
And, Rage Against the Machine, I think their first album was out at this point, and they were kind of starting. They toured on that for a long time.
Yeah,
it was, and it was really one of those things where you were seeing that they were really pushing into the mainstream alternative at the time. And that was all well and good because that's what you were hearing on the radio.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like, this is what we're hearing on the radio. We're hearing it all the time. We're not just hearing it on the college stations anymore. This is rock radio now.
Yeah.
And
this is full-on KDF.
Yeah, I mean, anything. Any station you would turn on, they were playing. It was a rock station. This is what they were playing now. Yeah, they were still sprinkling in, your other stuff, but this was becoming the prominent.
Yeah.
This is, this is music now, which is not a bad thing because I really still like a lot of this stuff from then. When you get to '94, we have something interesting. Perry Farrell approached Nirvana to headline '94, and they hadn't turned it down, but they hadn't committed to it because they were on tour, and this is right when everything happened with Kirk overdosing / whatever. It was either a suicide attempt or it was an overdose when they were in Italy, and then, but they announced on April 7th of 1994 that Nirvana was not going to be headlining that tour, and then the next day was when they found Kurt Cobain. Yeah, it was one of those things where it was like, oh wow, this was kind of one of those things. So, in '94, and this is a really cool lineup. I think you got Smashing Pumpkins, Beastie Boys,
George Clinton, and the P-Funk All-Stars, which I would have loved to have seen.
The Breeders, A Tribe Called Quest, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, L7, and then the Boredoms was of the first half of the tour, and then Green Day was on the second half of the tour. Yeah. Now, this would have been right when Dookie had come out. Before that, and they were starting to get some momentum at this point. Yeah. You start looking at the side stage: Flaming Lips, The Verb, the Boo Radleys, the Frogs. Which, do you know what the whole deal with the Frogs?
No.
Okay, I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. We talked about him before. Their keyboard player was the one that went out on tour with the Smashing Pumpkins and overdosed and died.
Oh, gotcha.
And, and that was the whole of him. And then Jimmy Chamberlain got arrested, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Guided by Voices. Guided by
Voices, which if you've never heard of Guided by Voices, you really need to check them out.
Lamb Chop, Girls Against Boys, Stereolab.
The Far Side is on
The Far Side, Shudder to Think, Luscious Jackson. Again, apparently Luscious Jackson really enjoyed playing the side stage. Shonen Knife. Are you familiar with them?
Not really.
They're a girl punk band from Japan.
Okay.
Yeah, they're actually pretty cool. And then it looks like there was a
poetry tent.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It says Angelo Moore and members of Fishbone performed in the poetry with the Beastie Boys. Yeah, so it's kind of cool that, some of the stuff they had all kinds of stuff like that, that they would do.
Evidently, Cypress Hill skipped a date to do one Lollapalooza date to appear at Woodstock '94.
Yeah, there were several bands that did that because they were on the Woodstock. Them and Green Day and I forget who else. It says here who all the ones were. You get into '95, and this is where we're getting interesting for multiple reasons. Sonic Youth was the headliner. I've never been a big Sonic Youth fan. I remember when this tour happened in '95, and I was like, "Oh, dude!" And it was them and Hole, Cypress Hill, Pavement, Sinead O'Connor for a few shows.
Pavement.
Yeah,
pretty good band.
Never a big fan of theirs. Sinead O'Connor was on the first few shows, but bowed out because of pregnancy. And Elastica and Moby did shows as her replacement.
Yeah.
Then you had Beck, the Jesus Lizards, and the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Which I've seen the Boss Tones in there. They put on a good show.
I've seen them before. And on the side stage, you had Coolio.
Possum Dixon.
Yeah, let's see. Geraldine Fibbers.
Yo La Tingo.
Far Side again. Built to Spill.
You remember Yo La Tingo, don't you?
I don't.
They were a sub-pop group.
Redman is on here.
Yep.
Mike Watt. Hum, The Roots, that would have been cool to see.
Yeah.
Patti Smith, Psychotica, Moby, Superchunk, Beck, and
I've seen Beck. He puts on a good show.
Right, yeah.
I saw him at 328.
This was the tour, and they're not listed on here. Or maybe it was what was the name of the band that lead singer of Bikini Kill, Kathleen Hanna.
Yeah.
What was the name of her second band?
I'll be honest with you.
Remember.
There's no way I'm going to know
the
that.
thing is, I don't see on here what. Anyways, there was something. This was. Hole was on this tour,
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, this Lollapalooza tour was when Courtney Love punched her, like coming off the stage or something one night. I mean, I'm
sure she would have killed Courtney Love.
No, from all accounts, she didn't just punch her; she laid her out.
Really?
Yeah. Now it was a sucker punch. I mean, it was
friggin' Courtney Love.
Yeah. Well, This is Courtney Love being her most Courtney Love era, 94, 95, type stuff. I know you don't like her, so. But yeah, I remember when that tour happened, kind of being like, I don't know about this. Now, what's really weird is that between 95 and 96, there was a big change. Okay.
Yes.
The organizers outside of Perry Farrell put together this lineup, and Metallica had just put out Load. This is their first album in 5 years, and everybody was really excited about, Metallica's getting ready to, put a new album and go on tour and blah, blah, blah.
Until they heard the album.
Man, there's about half of a good album there. And it's different. It's completely different, but there's about half of a good. I've always said between Load and Reload, there is like one solid album in there. But unfortunately, they decided to put out 2 mediocre albums instead. Yeah. So it just anyway. So they approached Metallica to headline. Metallica was like, "Sure, we'll go out on Lollapalooza." Perry Farrell wound up resigning from the board or whatever it was, kind of over it, because he felt like it was too mainstream bringing Metallica into this.
Yeah.
The other thing with it is that, and this is a great line. I saw this tour. Okay, I saw this one. Yeah. It's Metallica, Soundgarden, the Ramones, Rancid, the Shaolin Monks, Screaming Trees, and Psychotica.
Yep.
Okay, now, I saw one of the select dates where Rage Against the Machine also played.
Okay.
And I was, at that time, was not a huge Rage Against the Machine fan, but they put on a show like you wouldn't believe, and I legitimately thought we were going to see a riot happen when they were playing Killing in the Name.
Well, surprise me. Yeah.
I mean, just straight up, it was one of those things like that moment is seared in my mind of like, wow, that was intense, type stuff.
Yeah.
Again, this was when I got to see the Ramones, and I'm so happy I did, because this was actually part of their farewell tour. Later this year, they wrapped it up, and they never played together again.
See, that's one of the bands I regret never getting to see.
Now, Soundgarden, this was the second time Soundgarden had been on this tour.
Yeah.
But
here's one that may surprise people. One of the selected dates,
Waylon Jennings.
Jennings.
I know. Which is kind of funny he didn't play here in Tennessee. I'm kind of surprised with that. But also,
they probably did that on purpose to bring that music to other parts of the country. But
also, when selected dates was the Cocteau Twins, Cheap Trick, Violent Femmes, The Tea Party, Wu-Tang Clan, Steve Earle, Devo, and 311.
Yeah.
So that that was a really cool. Now, if you look at the side stage, you've got Beth Hart Band, which you remember her, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You've got Girls Against Boys, Ben Folds 5, Corner Shop, Soul Coughing, Sponge, the Melvins, Satchel, Johnny Polonsky, and somebody named Fireside. I don't know.
I loved Soul Coughing.
Yeah, I know.
I would have loved to have seen that.
And this is where they also added the third stage. It was called the Indie Stage, and I don't recognize anybody off of this one that went on to be anything. And I don't mean to besmirch anyone. Now, I was at this show. Okay, this was really funny. This particular. This particular lineup, because and Biscuit agrees. I still have the T-shirt from '96. I still have my ticket stub and everything. It was in Kingsport, Tennessee, which is basically, if you don't know where Kingsport, Tennessee is, welcome to the club, because I had no idea where it was at the time. Basically, what you did is you went to Knoxville and you took you took a right, and you drove for another hour into the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And the Kingsport had this big RV park.
Yep.
So in this field, they set up the stage and the two other smaller stages, and then they had some other stuff going, they had bounce houses and all that kind of stuff, and that was it. It was no shelter, blazing hot sun in the middle of the summer, for all day, type stuff. Now, of course, they were selling food and water. Of course, they were all overpriced for the time, and everything. And what we did is we drove up that morning. We had already booked a hotel, and then after the show was over, we went to the hotel and slept, and then drove back the next day.
Yeah.
Sunburned like you wouldn't believe, and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of weird, because it was one of those things. I saw most of these bands during the day.
Yeah.
Soundgarden was playing as the sun was going down, and then Metallica played at night. What was funny is that when, I think there was about 40,000 people that were there or so, that was kind of roughly, type thing. What was funny was going into this place, because there was nothing there. I mean, it's a small little town,
Yeah.
And it was just everybody was going to the RV park, and of course, everything was pointing this way to Lollapalooza, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And it was, so you're driving through, and it's a little bitty town, and they were all trying to pay for, they were all working in parking. You had to pay for parking, all that kind of stuff, all the usual stuff that goes with a festival of some sort.
Bonnaroo.
Yeah. What was really funny though is that Soundgarden left the stage.
Yeah.
And they started loading up from Metallica, and there was a mass exodus of people. And it was well, these are all the people who are not fans of Metallica headlining this thing. They were here to see all the alternative bands, and they don't care about the metal band that's headlining. Of course, I was there to see Metallica because Metallica fan.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I think they only did just a few songs off of Load. I mean, I think they did. They definitely did Until It Sleeps, and they did. I think Ain't My Bitch maybe, or something like that. But then everything else was old Metallica,
as it should be.
Yeah, which was really cool, and
Justice for All and Back.
A lot of stuff off of the Black Album too. So it was one of those things that was an interesting experience of everything is kind of, you can see the line of demarcation of the people who are really into alternative music and didn't care anything about Metallica, and then the Metallica fans, because you could tell them in the crowd too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was
everybody had their uniform on.
Yeah, pretty much, and I mean, but I'm serious. It was a mass exodus of people. But as soon as Soundgarden left the stage, I mean, people were just out the door.
Yeah.
You just saw all these people like heading, whether they were heading back to wherever, they were going to their hotel or whatever it was.
Yeah.
The next year,
97.
in 97, again, I went to this one.
Is the one
this one actually came to Nashville.
We were both there.
Right.
And
completely separate from each other.
Yeah, completely separate.
I was with a completely different group than you were.
Yeah.
On the main stage, you had Orbital, Devo, which I don't think Devo played here.
Yeah, they played the second stage.
No, this is as a main stage.
It says the main stage, but they didn't play the main stage. They
played-
went
okay.
over. They went over and
Then-
played.
Then I definitely did not see Devo.
Because
that
when we
was,
first got there, Orbital had been playing when we got there.
Right.
And it was Julian and Damon Marley.
Right.
Played
They were-
together.
yeah.
And they were early on in
Right.
the day, and we watched them.
Right, and then James came up after them. I remember this, and that was really cool. And then Tricky came on before James did. And I
Yes.
remember like seeing Tricky, and I wasn't real familiar with it. I was like, dude, this guy's good.
I knew Tricky.
I was like, wow,
that was
yeah.
one of the groups I was there to see. James, I was there to see.
And then
Korn had to drop out because
dropped,
Monkey had meningitis.
Right. I remember when
was
that happened.
in the hospital, and I was really upset about that
I
because
remember-
I wanted to see Korn. And
I had already seen Korn.
I hadn't seen Korn. I still haven't seen Korn
really?
at this
No.
point.
I saw them open for Ozzy in like 95 or something.
You know,
like
and
that,
I really
96.
wanted to, and that was when was that Freak on a Leash?
No, this was before that came out. This is when the first album was. Still,
yeah, but I really wanted to see
no.
those.
Yeah, no. Actually, I think Freak on a Leash had just come out.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think I'm almost positive that's what it was.
I really wanted to see and I was upset that they were gone. And then Snoop Dogg came out.
Snoop Dogg was so good.
And I went, screw this. I don't want to watch this. And we went over to the second stage at that point.
Yeah, you missed a show, dude. That was one of those things where I was kind of in that same, I don't really care about this. But then when he came out and started performing, I was like, oh, dude, this is fun. I want to, this is so much fun.
See,
I mean,
I was over at the second stage,
that.
and that's where we saw...
you see Failure?
I saw Failure. I saw Devo, because Devo played under a different name on the second stage.
Okay. This here says that Beck, the Eels, Artificial Joy Club.
I also went over to see Old 97s.
The Old 97s.
Yeah.
Porno for Pyros, which I'm trying to see who else. I don't recognize anybody else on this one. So, but here's the thing. Tool was the next. Like, they weren't. You would think that Tool would have been the headliners, but they weren't. They were second on the bill.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Because I remember Tool being...
Tool played. They were after Snoop Dogg. This is as it was getting nighttime.
Yeah.
Because the Prodigy was the headliner.
You're right.
And I left about 4 songs in.
I didn't.
I was just like...
Stayed for the whole thing.
And don't get me wrong, I like Prodigy,
I
but...
still like Prodigy.
It didn't... And even the Prodigy said that they weren't a big fan of that because of the way that everything was... there was... like seats, in the venues and stuff, and so they were like, we don't like the fact that like up front there's all these seats that are in the way, but then you look out and you see everybody moshing and dancing in the back, and that's the way it was because it was we went to Starwood, it was the amphitheater, but Tool put on an incredible show.
Oh,
they were so good.
Oh my gosh, that's still one of my top 3 shows.
Yeah, this is on the Enema tour, so it was like they were doing all the stuff that I wanted to see.
He was painted half blue, half red.
I know.
And just, oh my gosh.
And of the crowd that I was there with, Tool was kind of this is what everybody's going to see.
Yeah.
Now, Andy was alone, like, I'm here for Prodigy.
Yeah.
And me and Brent both left, like, partway through Prodigy. We're like, let's go get something to eat and get out of here, That was...
I was there to see Tool and Prodigy. I was there to see both of them.
But that was a really cool show. And it was kind of I love that there's a little thing here, and I seem to remember this. There's a little note on this that says, never have confirmed that G Love and Special Sauce played the festival. All reports had said it was Damien and Julian Marley and the Uprising Band.
And that's right, because I saw that show.
Yeah, but I remember hearing that G Love and Special Sauce were supposed to be on Lollapalooza that year, and then apparently they just never appeared,
Yeah.
This was the last year that they went out in the 90s. In 98, I remember they were trying to get they were trying to put together another one.
Yeah.
And there were rumors that they were trying to put Guns N' Roses on it.
That would have never worked.
Now, this would have been the Axl Guns N' Roses. You know, like this was after everybody had left, and Axl and Dizzy were the only two guys.
We're talking about the spaghetti incident.
No, we're talking. Well, yeah, but we're talking about who knows was in the band at that point. I think that would have been more of what went out later on as Guns N' Roses.
It would have been Buckethead and Gilby.
No, Gilby wasn't in the. It would have been if it had been the one that I saw in 2002. It would have been Buckethead and Tommy Stinson and
I forgot about him.
And well, at this point, what's his name? Brain from Primus was in the band.
Yeah.
Now he wasn't with them by the time they actually started touring. Dizzy was still in the band, and I'm trying to think who else. There was another guitar player. At that point, it was one of Axl's friends from like Indiana. It was Tobias somebody. I forget what the guy's name was. That kind of stuff. Now, eventually, Bumblefoot wound up being in the band, and there's a whole bunch of who knows who would have been on the tour with them at this point. But it wouldn't have been Guns N' Roses as we knew them. Okay,
it wasn't Guns N' Roses.
Right.
It was
Axl and some other guys. I know, but it was one of those things that they tried. They went through several different. We're going to try to get, and it just never happened. And they didn't tour again until 2003. Now, there's a reason that they resurrected it as a touring act, as a touring festival in 2003, is because Jane's Addiction got back together.
Yeah. And
so they were like, okay, well, let's go do this thing. Now, also, you have to remember that Perry Farrell, when he was doing Porno for Pyros, like in that 96, 97 era or whatever, had put together the Enid tour, which was another, like he was basically saying, okay, Lollapalooza has become too mainstream. We're going to go over here and do this thing. And,
we got to be alternative again.
Exactly. And so they took Porno for Pyros out with a bunch of people, and whatever. And I think that only lasted like 2 years or something. So when they came back in 2003, it was Jane's Addiction, Audio Slave, Incubus, Queens of the Stone Age, A Perfect Circle, Jurassic 5, the Donnas, Rooney, and the Distillers on the main stage.
That's not a bad.
That's
lineup.
A really good lineup. Again, I was like, dude, I kind of wish I had seen that. Now that I look
had a
back
chance
on
to
it.
go see the Donnas and I missed it.
Oh yeah. On the side stage, Steve-O from Jackass had something he was doing over there.
Probably an hour of him kicking himself in the nuts.
Here you go. Kings of Leon.
Yeah.
30 Seconds to Mars.
Oh, that would have been a good show.
The Music.
Yeah, I don't know them.
The hip hop act. The Music.
Yeah.
The Mooney Suzuki.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Dude.
I'm looking at a bunch of this other stuff. Hot Action Cop. I remember those guys. Stupid band.
Mooney Suzuki, though. They rocked.
So it was one of those things. But here's what happened. They were set to go out in 94.
Yeah.
And what they were going to do, they were going to change the format to where it was going to be a 2-day. Everywhere they went, it was going to be a 2-day rather than just 1 day.
Sure.
And they never, the tour wound up being canceled because nobody bought tickets. It had really low ticket sales, Well,
I think that was the same with pretty much everything.
Kind of around that time. Now, around this time,
wasn't that the years that we were watching on the mystery VHS tape where they were talking about?
No. That was in 91.
You're right.
This is in 2004. And things were not kind so great there anyway. But it was one of those things that they just couldn't get it off. They couldn't get it going. And so they wound up canceling it. The bands that they were trying. Here's a list of the bands they were trying to get on that one. Which was the Pixies, Morrissey, PJ Harvey, Sonic Youth, The Killers, Wilco, Flaming Lips, the Von Bondies, String Cheese Incident, Modest Mouse, La Tigra.
La Tigra. I'd forgot about La Tigra.
Black Rebel Motorcycle Club.
That's a good band.
Danger Mouse, The Polyphonic Spree. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else on here that's noteworthy. I don't really see anybody. Oh, Dresden Dolls. Okay. But so they took a year off again, okay?
Yeah.
So they took 5 years. They took 6 years off, came back, toured, took another year off, And then in 2005, it became what it is now, where they cut a deal with Chicago, and it is a 2-day festival that is just there. It's like basically you come up here and they have all kinds of bands playing for 2 days.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to get into all that stuff. One of the things that I found in looking at this is that a couple of things have happened with it since it's become a Chicago only thing.
Yeah.
One is that they tried to expand it to 4 days at one point, and they only did it like 1 year. And the reason that they didn't, again, they saw low turnout, low ticket sales because the price went up so much.
Well, I mean, you added 2 days to the ticket price.
Well, the thing is that now, this is what they were saying, to go to the show for like the festival pass is almost $400.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, that's just for the tickets. That has nothing to do with hotel and and
food,
eating and all that kind of stuff.
Transportation.
Yeah. I'm just like, dude,
souvenirs.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, a lot of the reason why I don't go to concerts much anymore is because they've just become so expensive.
I can't afford to go to shows.
I know, and there's a couple of them coming here soon that I'm like, I really want to go to this, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have the money for it.
Like what?
Joan Jett's going to be here in less than a month.
Can't afford that.
Of course, we were looking at that Soul Asylum with Local H and
I'm thinking
Juliana
Hatfield. That's not going to be that expensive.
No, it's not. It's going to be about $35. It's all general admission. I mean, it's not where they're playing. So
yeah,
that'll be worth it. But like Counting Crows are coming through. Elton John is playing here in October as his farewell. Well, actually, we could. I went and looked at tickets the other day, and they're up in the 300 section. He's playing at Bridgestone.
Yeah.
They're $52 a piece, and I'm like, I
could 52 for nosebleed
for Elton John. I know, but do you want to know how much anything else was?
Yeah, but still,
I'm like, I want to see Elton John because again, it's kind of one of those. I may never get a chance to see him again. So I'm in that. All right, I'll probably end up shelling out the $52 for that ticket to be in the room.
I know it's Elton John and all that, but I can't justify that. That's not one of my bucket list artists.
He is, because I love Elton John, so it's,
I love the music. Mm-hmm. Just going to see him though, that just doesn't do anything for me.
That's fair enough. It's everybody. Look, believe me, there are a lot of acts that I just will never see because I'm like, I don't care to see them live. I obviously probably have. I
tried to go see Pink Floyd like 3 or 4 times.
I saw Pink Floyd,
and that's never going to happen for me.
And you know what's funny is that I saw Pink Floyd, and it's one of those things when you tell people, "Oh, I saw Pink Floyd," they're like, "Oh my God, that must have been." It was a good show, but it's one of those things that it's not in my. The
closest I ever got is I went to go see Roger Waters out at Starwood, and that was actually a really good show.
Well, the Pink Floyd show. Probably not in my top 30 concerts all time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's other than the fact that it's Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
That's really okay. It really wasn't that great of a show. Yeah. I mean, it was really kind of boring, to be honest.
I mean, I got to see Prince. I got to see Black Crowes.
Prince is like one of the.
You got to see the Ramones.
I did get to see the Ramones. And,
screw you.
Anyway, so Lollapalooza is still ongoing.
Yeah.
Okay. But you have to remember,
but they're the ones who kind of gave rise to all the festival shows.
They really did. This was the Lollapalooza went out. You had. You got to look back to the previous generation. With their you got Woodstock and Altamont. And the Isle of Wight and
But none of those were touring shows.
No, they weren't. They're also, and even because one of the things I was reading up on this is Perry Farrell was talking about looking at like Reading Fest, and the Castle Donington shows and stuff like that, and being like, that's kind of cool, but it would be really cool if we could take this out and expose a lot more people to it.
So you ended up with Lollapalooza. You ended up with Lilith Fair.
Well, Lilith Fair eventually. You wound up with the Horde Festival eventually. You wound up with the Smoking Grooves Tour. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones.
The Vans. Family Values.
Well, you had Family Values, but you had Warped tour.
Yeah, Warped Tour.
Which has also gone to this format
Yeah.
in recent years. Like they have stopped touring. They're just like they
You
have
have
like several of them, but it's like they'll have one. They're only hitting like they'll have Warped Tour like L.A. or something like that, and then like Warped Tour Chicago or something.
Yeah.
But that's it. They're not.
They're
touring
only
like
hitting
they
the
were.
major melody.
Well, and it's only like 2 shows.
You had Ozfest.
Ozfest came out. Ozfest had a lot to do with kind of as counter programming to to
It's like those alternative kids can get out and do that, so can the metalheads.
and it's funny because we named all this stuff.
Yeah.
The only ones still touring at this point are Ozfest,
Yeah.
and then that still touring is Ozfest, and then you have Warped Tour happening in 1 or 2 specific cities, and you have Lollapalooza happening in 1 city. After that, Lollapalooza led to Bonnaroo and Coachella and all of that stuff.
But Bonnaroo took more of the Woodstock model.
Right.
And
But I'm saying, if Lollapalooza had not have happened, we would still have festivals, but it was really one of the big touring festivals. There was stuff that happened. You had Us Fest, and you had you had like a Live Aid. You would have stuff like that from time to time, where it was like this big. What's the one? Monterey Pop was like another one. That was, you would have this stuff, but this was like hours.
Yeah.
Like, no, not only is it hours, it's like when you look at like it's one of those things when you look at the bands that played, it was very, very pointed at Gen X.
Oh yeah.
For those, from 91 to 97, that was like, no, this is a Gen X festival that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was one of those things where, the word Lollapalooza had been around for a long time. Like, I was actually looking at that, like it dates back into like, the 1800s, and stuff. And Perry Farrell even said that he got that, when he was looking for a name for it, he was watching the Three Stooges, and it was mentioned in one of their shorts. He's like, "Oh, that's interesting," and went and looked it up, and he's like, "Oh, this is an actual word," and type stuff. And so that's why they used it. The during those years, though, from 91 to 97, it permeated everything. I mean, hell, they were on The Simpsons. It was called Hullabalooza. It wasn't Lollapalooza, but it was still one of those things where it was like, you would see it mentioned in all kinds of pop culture, like television and movies and this and that.
You couldn't get away from Perry Farrell.
No, you couldn't get away from Lollapalooza anyway, And that really was kind of one of those things for us. We were talking about, oh, I went to Lollapalooza. Oh, what years? Who'd you see? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, you were at the one this. Did you go see this? Blah. It was one of those things where it kind of became like a rite of passage in a lot of ways. It was one of those things like, no, you have to go to Lollapalooza. I mean, that's if they come through.
You've got to go to at least one.
Right. And I wound up hitting 2 of them. You
got to go to at least one to say that you've been.
Exactly.
I got one.
Yeah.
But it was one
but
of
you
the
got
good
a good
ones.
one. You got a good one. And it was actually a pretty decent way to go out.
Yeah, it really
with
was.
The lineup that they had, because you really, again, you're looking back on that with Tool and Prodigy and Snoop Dogg and Tricky and Orbital at the time, like Tricky and Orbital and Prodigy and the Orb, all that kind of stuff. It's like electronica had really
come in,
and it was getting into that stuff. And then you had like your Tool, as we're the prog metal, whatever we are, and then you had Snoop Dogg, who hey, representing hip hop, So it was one of those things where you got all of this.
Yeah.
This is kind of, you look at 1997, and this is kind of what was going on,
It really was.
Outside of the Spice Girls or whatever, or Hanson or, whatever that was going on pop radio, but you got the rest of it.
Yeah.
So
the good stuff.
And that kind of, like Gen X was kind of like that. We were, when we kind of got away from those tribes of music. Rather than, oh, I'm a metal guy, or oh, I'm a hip hop guy, or oh, I'm an alternative person, or
there were no tribes. It was
no. We're just gonna throw it all in the mix and see what happens.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and we loved it all.
Exactly. And that.
But I mean, a lot of that was, coming up, listening to the music that our parents listened to, and having a wide variety of music that we enjoyed listening to.
Absolutely. And that's you go on the Woodstock model of, there was a wide variety of stuff. Yeah, hell, if you just go to like Woodstock 94 and look at some of the people that played, I mean, you really had a wide variety of stuff. You would have like Metallica and 9 Inch Nails played, but so did Green Day. And so did Johnny Cash, and so did Crosby, Stills and Nash play. You had some throwback to some of that stuff, but then you would have like Jackal for whatever reason played on that. It was just weird. I think the Black Crowes played. There was a bunch of this kind of stuff where it was like, okay, we're getting a mix of across the boards here. Neil Young played, and that kind of stuff. So it was like, okay, we're getting a mix of stuff from the old stuff to the new stuff.
Yeah, but you notice that Neil Young did not play with CSN.
No. He did not. He did his own thing.
That was wasn't that the Wild Horse days or Crazy Horse days?
Crazy Horse, yeah, that was when he was with Crazy Horse. And once you get, but that is again, it's a 3-day festival, yeah, but it happens like once every 5 or however many years. At that point, it was like, 25 years later, they're doing it in 94, and then we all know what happened in 99, and everything went sideways. Well, they got blamed for it, but it wasn't Limp Bizkit. It was. I blame the promoters more than anything about all that.
Well, if you go back and look at the history of Woodstock,
yeah,
it's all the promoters' fault.
It's always been a mess.
They've never been able to plan that thing right.
Nope. So,
never.
But yeah, Lollapalooza is one of those things that it's kind of like so many other touchstones in our lives that, I have a tattoo, this Toys R Us tattoo here.
Yeah.
When they were closing 4 years ago, it was one of those things where I saw a lot of posts on social media about, I can't believe Toys R Us and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But it was still one of those things. It was kind of one of those like, hey, when was the last time you were actually at a Toys R Us? You know?
Exactly.
And it's one of those things. For me, I was there a lot, not just because I had kids, but because I still love toys. I'll be honest. I would go in there and buy action figures and pops and all that kind of stuff. Lollapalooza is kind of that same thing. Kind of like with people arguing, like people our age complaining about, there's no music on MTV. Well, are you going to watch the music videos they play on MTV? No, you're not. But you want to complain about it because it's something you remember from your youth, of like, this is the way it used to be, and you want it to stay that way. But the reason MTV stopped playing music videos is because, well, nobody was watching music videos on MTV any longer. There was plenty of other ways to do it. Lollapalooza is kind of that same thing. Like I remember when they came back, thinking, this is so great. I'd love to go see this again. But I was not going to shell out the type of money they wanted to go to this. Yeah. I couldn't afford it for one thing, and for another, I started looking at a lot of lineups. And I'm like, I don't care about some of this. There's been some cool stuff. Like Lady Gaga had one of her big, like before she broke, she played Lollapalooza, in Chicago, and apparently that was like one of the big things that was kind of like gave her a big push, type stuff, as well as some others. There's plenty of it. So, but that's as it went from the Lollapalooza generation into the Coachella generation.
Coachella.
I know, but that's the whole thing. Coachella and Bonnaroo are both like and of course
the unwanted love child,
and then there's the Fire Fest that never happened, or that it was supposed to happen. That's a whole go and look up Fire Fest, Fire with a Y, okay? Because
that was what's his name?
Yeah, there's two different. Ja Rule was involved, but it was the other. He was more the face of it as well, but the other guy
he got all the blame. But I'm surprised he didn't end back up in prison over that.
Well, but the other guy did go to prison because there was a lot of mismanaged money and there was a lot of fraud involved, is what it was. But a lot of it. And there are two great documentaries, one on Hulu and one on Netflix about Firefest that I suggest going watching. But again, I was going back to the whole. We've seen it go from Lollapalooza to Coachella, to Coachella / Bonnaroo, and it's like festivals have become like the big thing now. Music festivals.
Well, it's the bang for your buck theory.
And I get that because every year when they release the Bonnaroo schedule, I look at it and I kind of go through and I was like, I'd like to see that. I'd like to say, well, what? But there's no way I'm going to get down 100,000 people like that. I'm just not doing it.
I don't like being around that many
I don't
people.
either. I don't either.
Especially being fenced in with them.
Right. And it's one of those things that I'm just like, no, I'm good. Any of these bands. Oh, one of the things that I did see that was a controversy about the Chicago, like the stationary Lollapalooza, a lot of bands refused to play there because part of the contract is that if you sign on to play at Lollapalooza, you cannot play anywhere within 300 miles of there within 3 months on either side of it.
Yeah.
I know. And that's a lot of bands are like, forget that. I know. It's like, that. I'm not doing that. And I understand what the promoters are, what they're trying to do. They're like, we don't want a band that's going to play here that would be a draw to be coming through here again in a month.
Yeah.
Or somewhere locally in a month. And then people are like, well, I'll just skip the $400 to go see this and just go see them for, just them or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big problem. Now, here's something interesting I did not know. Okay, so let me see if I can pull it up here. Are you all right?
Yeah. I'm
getting sore. I know we've been sitting here. We've been doing this for a while.
The old man's getting stiff.
Lollapalooza. Hold on, I think I need to go back one more. Yeah, here we go. It was, you think of it as it's a North American thing. Well, they've actually done international. They have international branches. They've been in Chile, Brazil, Argentina, Germany, Sweden, France, and Israel have all had like legit Lollapalooza, but it's been the stationary festival style that like the Chicago.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat that they branched out and have I guess remain. I guess it's kind of cool to see something that is a relic from our youth still relevant. Now obviously they didn't have one in 2020 because of everything.
COVID.
Yeah, but it's they're coming back this year, and
but what's the lineup?
I haven't looked at it. They always get big acts. I mean, it's not a like, oh, we're just throwing a bunch. It's like, no, you see a lot of really big acts that play Lollapalooza every year.
Yeah, but does it have the same spirit?
No, because that's the whole thing. Perry Farrell, whenever he was put the first one together, and this is again, I was doing the research on that. In 1991, he was doing an interview, and he coined the phrase "alternative nation."
Yeah.
As no, this is we are not what is happening in mainstream music right now. And they weren't, especially that first year. They were not what was happening in mainstream music.
Yeah.
By the time you get to 92, you've got more mainstream stuff, but they were leaning into the grunge thing because that was just happening. Like, it had been only 6 months since all this stuff broke. And so they're like, yeah, let's take Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and, the Chili Peppers broke through finally into, the mainstream like they'd been toying with for years. And so it was one of those things like, it makes perfect sense. You go with that. You still get to showcase some up and coming bands, or some that haven't quite made it into that, Smashing Pumpkins or whatever strata that would go on to be big bands. And so, but again, by the time you get to 97, you're seeing alternative music has kind of taken a nosedive at that point, and they did a really good job of trying to stay relevant with bands like Prodigy and all that kind of stuff. Tool and bringing Korn out. You're like, okay, things are changing. Let's kind of change with them. But it really was looking back now, I couldn't imagine them doing that the same way out of the 90s. I can't imagine us talking about, a touring Lollapalooza in 2021.
I mean, who would you have on it?
Exactly, and it would be a touring oldies act, is what it would be. If it stayed with that same, it'd be one of those things.
I can't think of any bands right now that I would be excited about going to see on that.
Again,
that are the new
right. And again, like I said, it's one of those things, kind of like the Summerland tour. that goes out every year, which is it's Everclear, and they'll take out some other 90s, those alternative meals.
But it's almost turned into a nostalgia.
Exactly.
thing.
And that's what happens after a while. It's like, Bruce Springsteen, if he went out on tour right now, I know he's doing his Broadway thing, but he goes out on, like, I saw Springsteen in 2000, like when he got the E Street Band back together and went out on tour. It's like, okay, awesome show. It was all nostalgia. That's all it is. I was probably one of the youngest people at that play, at that show, But it was one of those things where it's like, no matter what your body of music is, after you've been doing it 20-ish years, you're really just a touring nostalgia show, no matter how much you're trying to put the new music out there. So it is.
Everybody wants to hear the old songs.
Exactly, and that's, you too, big fan. Are not as big as I used to be, but I've been a big fan of theirs for years. But it's one of those things that I saw them 10 years ago, the last time. I've had opportunities to see them since then, and I'm like, no, I don't want to. I've seen them at their best. And I'll be honest, I haven't liked much of the music they've done since 2005. So it's one of those things where I'm
still mad about Megadeth canceling here and the band blowing up before I actually get to see the Daves play together.
That's
I'm still bitter about it.
When you're dealing with Dave Mustaine, you never know what's going to happen. So it's But again, like Ozfest. That's one of the things that they, Ozfest has been pretty good about trying to keep their lineups fresh over the years.
Yeah.
But when you look at the top of the bill, it's almost always kind of nostalgia acts, whether it's Ozzy, or it's Black Sabbath, or it's Rob Zombie, or any number of
one of the big four,
one of those big bands that they put out there as the top. It's like you get to see some new people, but you're predominantly going to be seeing at the top of the bill, the top, top spots are going to be like that. So who knows? Well, maybe Lollapalooza will one day say, hey, you know what? For grins, we're gonna put together another tour and go out and maybe get some of the old bands in here just as a, hey, let's do this one last time.
Yeah, and, but it's all nostalgia at this point.
This
is something that we keep.
But
accusing the boomers of doing all the time.
What? This show isn't all nostalgia. I mean,
it is.
And so many other podcasts that I listen to and that are really popular are just pure nostalgia. And
I wonder what actual bands, like actual instrument playing bands, could you put on that tour to have like new music that would actually be relevant?
I don't know, and the reason I say that is because the state of the industry right now, especially the concert industry, not just the music industry, but the concert industry, is fueled by nostalgia acts, and that's it. Honestly, when you look at the biggest tours every year, they are nostalgia stuff. No matter, even bands that you wouldn't think of as being nostalgia, like Perfect Circle gets back together, or something, or Nine Inch Nails goes out. No, those are just
the shows we were
stuff.
just talking about. Joan Jett,
right?
Soul Asylum,
right? All of that is
Living
nostalgia.
Color.
And it's one of those things. I like all of those. What you just mentioned.
Yeah,
right there.
I know.
It's like Joan Jett. I've never seen her in concert, so I want to go to that show. I want to go to the Elton John show because I'm like I've never seen him in concert. Soul Asylum, I've seen them half a dozen times. They've been good every time, and they're one of those bands that like I will go see them every time they come to town because they're really that good live, and I love their music. There are other ones that I saw them already. I don't really care about going any longer. There are really, outside of maybe Ryan Hamilton, there's really not any new acts that I would like to go see in concert.
See, for me, that band would be Band of Skulls.
Yeah, there you go. It's like, there are a select few of, newer bands that I wouldn't mind seeing if the price was right.
Yeah.
Depending on who they were. But it is still kind of one of those, I would prefer to see the stuff that I like. It's funny because like some of the last concerts that I went to, and it's funny on one of them especially, but like, I went and saw the Gin Blossoms when they were doing their, 20th anniversary of New Miserable Experience, I guess it was the 25th anniversary of New Miserable Experience. I was like, this is awesome. I enjoy this. They did the entire show. there's been a lot of that too, where like people are like, Alanis Morissette was supposed to go out last year on the 25th anniversary of Jagged Little Pill, and do the whole album. There's been a lot of that type stuff where it's like, oh, it's such whatever. Sebastian Bach did in when it was the 30th anniversary of the first one, he went out on tour doing that album, and he's supposed to go back out this year doing Slave to the Grind.
I think I saw he's playing.
He's on the.
Was it Beaver Dam?
Yeah, and he's doing the Slave to the Grind. That whole, of course, he'll do other Skid Row stuff as well as his solo stuff. Yeah. But it's one of those things where you're seeing a lot of that type where it's the anniversary of an album, and so they're going out and playing. Weezer did that a few years ago. The Blue Album was their 25th anniversary or whatever.
They actually toured the Pinkerton album at one point, which they swore they would never do.
Yeah. I saw them on the Pinkerton tour, and
really,
yeah, and I was there to see all the Blue Album stuff. Pinkerton it's all right. That's all. I know. Well, so many people talk about how great Pinkerton. I think it's all right. It's the Blue Album is a superior album to it, and Green is right there. Probably, I don't know. We could argue again. This is another one of those people always. Oh, the Pinkerton. I'm like, the Blue Album is the superior album. I'm sorry. There's no ifs, ands, buts about that in my opinion. Okay, it's just my opinion. That's the one I like. I'm not putting, say what you will, but yeah, that is, it's all nostalgia. The other bands that are out touring right now are, I was going to say, what the one of the shows that I saw previous to Gin Blossoms that actually was a nostalgia also, then you're going to be like, really? You went to that show? I went and saw Michelle Branch.
No, I know you like her.
I love Michelle Branch, and so it's one of those things. She had just put out her new album. She lives here in Nashville now, and it's one of those things that, like, she was on a small tour for the whatever, but obviously that was a lot of going back to her first two albums, of like that, and also the stuff that she did with the Wreckers. Because the other girl, I can't remember the other girl, Jessica, I forget what her last name is, that was in there, actually came down and they did a couple of songs together.
Sure.
Which is cool. I'm like, all right. Again, that's another one of those. That's a nostalgia tour. Even though she has a new album out, it's still a nostalgia tour for the early 2000s. So
I would love to see the Foo Fighters because I haven't ever seen.
I've never seen them either, and I would like to as well. But again, I don't know that I want to go. I would like to see them because I do love the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
But I like the Foo Fighters up to a point.
What?
And anything after that, I'm like, I'm not real big
about it.
Yeah.
Come on.
Look, it's like any band, okay? There's going to be stuff you like and there's going to be stuff you don't like. I've said this about Counting Crows. I love the first three albums.
First two.
For me, I love the first three albums, about half of their fourth album, and then it's pick and choose after that. A few songs here, a few songs there, whatever. So it's one of those things that, like, the last time I saw them was they were touring on, I can't remember the name of the album now, but it was one of those things where it was like all the old songs they were doing I was really into.
Yeah.
When they started doing the new stuff, I'm like, yeah, this is all right. It was kind of that, it's like,
I love everything the Foos do.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of Dave Grohl.
But see, once you get past There's Nothing Left to Lose. Is that the name of the album? The one that had like Best of You and all that on it. Once you get past that, I'm like, it's hit or miss,
I feel like I should throw something heavy at you for such sacrilege.
But that's just the way it is. I know that, but that's, again, just like what I said, Counting Crows, first 3.5 albums are great, and you're very adamant about, no, it's only the first two.
It's only the first two.
And I'm like, well, I think you haven't listened to This Desert Life enough to understand how good it is. That's ultimately what it comes down to. It's and you're sitting there going, you obviously have not listened to the rest of the Foo Fighters stuff enough to understand how great it is. And maybe
enjoy the growth and the progression.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, exactly. But that's the whole thing. It's like you too.
Yeah,
I like all of their stuff up through How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. After that, I could give a fuck. I know I said it, but and that's harsh for me as someone who was such a huge U2 fan for so long, you know?
And militant U2 fan.
I know. And it's just like, I know that's where they lost me. When No Line on the Horizon came out, I'm like, what is this? And I just cannot get into them. I've tried. I have listened to every album they've put out, you know, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't get it any longer. So
gotcha.
And you know, that's just kind of the way it is. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening to the Project Gen X podcast. If you have Lollapalooza memories, you know, hit up our Discord, as well as anywhere else. You know, we are on social media, Instagram, Facebook. You can email us projectgenxpod@gmail.com.
There you go.
And all that kind of stuff. Of course, we'll be back with more episodes after this. We are almost at 100. We have something big coming up for that.
Getting closer. Uh-oh. Bless you.
Edit that. But yeah, we got some big stuff coming up. Of course, we're also not that far away from Oktoberfest again, and we always double down on that one and have such a good time.
That's coming up again.
It is coming up again. It's going to be fun, and so yeah. Thank you once again. I'm sorry, I got completely distracted by nothing there for a second.
I was like, that actually like creeped me out a little bit because you were looking over my shoulder like there was somebody standing behind me.
I'll explain it to you. No, because you're going to laugh whenever you understand what it is. I'm looking back over your shoulder there, and I've got one of those stand-up lamps that has the bowl sitting on top. You know you know what I'm talking about. And I looked back over there. And the base, like the stem of it and the base and everything is black, and then the shade is white.
Yeah.
So the way it is positioned in the house, the black part of it is blending in with the accent that I have around my back windows, and then the windows, of course, are all white. So I look over there, and for whatever reason, I looked at it, and for a second. All I saw was what looked like a piece of paper or something that was stuck to that accent. And I'm sitting there going, what is going on there? And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, that's the shade, okay?
Because the way you looked over my shoulder, knowing that this house is haunted.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, there is a ghost.
Because I'm sitting there going, what in the world is that? And then it clicked. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's like there is a ghost standing right behind me. I am about to die.
I also think that we're both a little bit punchy because this is the third episode in a row that we've recorded, and we're just kind of like, okay, this has got to be this. Okay, this is it. So guys, go and check out everything.
I think it may be a Waffle House run.
Oh, dude, I'm starting to get hungry again.
Yeah.
So, again, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Please share us in your social media. Share us with your friends. Go and give us. Go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you listen and give us reviews. That would help us tremendously.
The podcaster I'm actually using now is Podverse.
You're using Podverse,
and it is 2.0 compliant.
I use Overcast. There are plenty of things for you to use, and please go to whatever your podcast aggregator is and give us a rating because that helps us
more than you know.
More than you know. It costs you nothing, and it gives us everything, basically. Yeah. So, guys, thank you so much. We will see you next time. I'm Alan Smith.
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
And hopefully, I won't be seeing stuff next time we do this. See ya.
We're out of here.